Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, which was named by Poets and Writers a best book for writers. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. And follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, and today I'm so happy to have Sally Ekus with us. She's a senior literary agent at Naggar Literary Agency, where she spearheads the Ekus Group, a boutique division specializing in cookbook and lifestyle titles. She represents a wide range of culinary, health, wellness, and lifestyle talent, from first-time cookbook authors to chefs, restaurant owners, professional food writers, bloggers, online creators, and journalists. On the non-culinary side, Sally represents books about caregiving and parenting, body inclusivity, and more. From concept to contract, she has brokered over 350 book deals with top publishers, including Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, Hachette, Simon & Schuster, and numerous indie publishers. Sally hosts an online community called How to Be a Cookbook Author and writes the best-selling Substack, Not So Secret Agent newsletter. Welcome, Sally.
I'm so excited to talk with you today. Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. And we're fellow Women's Media Group members, which is wonderful. And also, we talked a little, and then I had Nava Atlas and Bob Eckstein with their fabulous book, Inspired by Cats, that talks all about the cats and their muses, from literary figures from the past to today, including my favorite, Judy Blume, and so many more. So it's such a fabulous book for adults, for gifts, for everything. So
yeah, the cat lover in your life.
And I am a huge cat lover. I have a dog now, as I said on the program, but I always had cats. And so I'm all about the cats. So let's talk about you, Sally. Sure. You have had quite a stellar career that is ongoing. You deal with cookbook authors, but it's cookbook authors plus. And you talk about all the other elements of somebody's writing or thoughts or ideas that you would cover. Can you talk a little bit about, first of all, how you became an agent? I know it's sort of in the family business. But if you could share a bit about that. I always love the evolution of where someone ends up from where they started.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Ekus Group was originally founded by my mom, Lisa Ekus, who has been retired for 3 years. And she founded the Ekus Group as a PR agency specializing in public relations for cookbook authors. So she was helping to coordinate multi-city tours in what we all refer to as like the good old days of publishing, when publishers were underwriting multi-city tours for authors to go out and promote their book. And she niched down to have a culinary focus right out of the gate in her career. So I grew up in food media and around publicity. I grew up watching the response time of a publicist, booking interviews, coordinating on the ground tours. And so that was absorbed via osmosis in me, but I was never pressured to go into the family business. Lisa continued to evolve the agency from PR to talent management and then into agenting. And so that was really the core expertise and knowledge base in which I stepped into the agency when I did now 17 years ago. I was on a different professional trajectory. I moved home. I started helping Lisa out at the business. And at that time, we were really focused on agenting. And so I was hyper mentored in what it means to be a literary agent right out of the gate. And we've always had that culinary focus. Fast forward to today, Lisa's retired for a number of years. I merged our agency with the JV&LA agency because both agencies are second generation family women run agencies that have been around for decades and understand the legacy of responsibilities and enthusiasm for building an author's career beyond that first book, really long term. And so, what I bring to the table today as a modern day literary agent is this background in the culinary industry in its early iterations as food media was starting to expand and agencies were growing and campaigns were starting to really come together on the brand side. And I get to bring all of that historical knowledge to the forefront in what I do as an agent today.
And when I was looking into your history, I thought Lisa Ekus, I remember that name from when I was a magazine editor in
Yeah.
chief in the
Amazing.
90s.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Just the other day, I got an email from someone who was digging through culinary archives and found a press release from 1991 that they sent to me. At one point, the agency evolved names. It was originally Lisa Ekus Public Relations, and it was just it was a printed mailer. And I just love that history. And Lisa pitched all of the journalists and publications. And I still, to this day, always in conversations hear people say, I know that name. I know that name.
It was the glory days of
Yes.
publishing.
Yeah.
I remember when I was associate beauty editor of Woman's World before I had a higher editorial role, and we would get all the packages in. And I'd know all the names and they'd keep me apprised of the latest and the greatest. And then
Yep.
when I was a senior editor at American Woman, all the publishers would send me their catalogs. And so there'd be, if I wanted to
Catalogs.
talk to somebody, the
Yeah.
connection would be through the publisher, through
Yes.
the representative. And then when I became the editor in chief at Woman's Own, it was the same thing and it just
Yep.
kept going. And I love those days because I honed my teeth, just
Yep.
like you did. You
Yep.
absorbed
Yep.
everything. I went through all the books and pulled out excerpts and figured out who we were featuring in the
Yep.
pages of the magazine. And it's a whole different world than it is today. But you have pivoted. You do so much. You have a Substack. You speak widely. You've really elevated, the original model of what the representative and the talent person is to make it a whole branding platform situation. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I feel so lucky that I had the access and lived experience to having grown up in this industry, and then also the access to that level of hyper mentorship and hands-on relationship building at the very beginning of my professional career. I mean, I completely understand what a place of privilege that is to be able to step into it in that way. And of course, I've had to prove myself and the door was open for me, but I still had to walk through it and I still have to like find every room on my own. But because of that privilege and that immediate access, I feel it's baked into my core being to give back as much as I can. So I love sharing information about how publishing works through my newsletter, Not So Secret Agent. I love having conversations like this where I can tap into somebody else's audience and say, hey, let me help you identify where you're at in your point in the authorship journey. And here are some tools that might be helpful resources to get to that next step. There's really no reason, in my opinion, to be a gatekeeper. I feel like the more the industry or aspiring people to be in the industry have access to the information, the better the industry, however you want to define it or put air quotes around it, will do, right? Like rising tides all floats all boats. And so it's just been part of how I've done what I do from the very beginning. And certainly as my career has evolved, I've had more opportunities to do interviews, to do speaking engagements, to be on panels, to talk at conferences, do workshops, and just continue to offer that agent sounding board and reflection beyond my client list, beyond the people that I represent exclusively. And then we've always had this culinary expertise, but I'm also interested in other areas of nonfiction. So over the past few years, I've begun to expand into other parts of nonfiction that I'm both personally and professionally curious in. And, I'm pitching editors that cross acquire across other genres, or maybe it's their colleagues that I'm pitching. And so it's an area of representation that I still feel quite qualified and excited to represent, and helps me stretch my wings a little bit. I'm so curious to ask you, actually, because you have the history in traditional journalism too. In the work that you do helping writers get noticed, do you find that there are themes that still resonate from those good old days that are still very applicable or effective today, and they've just evolved?
I think getting people's attention
Yeah.
is more important than even when I used to do it on the cover lines that were sold on the newsstand,
Yeah. Yeah.
because our attention span is much shorter now.
Right.
And so I started out in print, and then we went to online, the advent of the internet, where, by the
Yep.
way, people were being paid a lot more for their writing in the beginning than they are today
Yeah.
for online. So I feel like you have to know how to do good titles. You
Right.
have to know how to get those subheads in. You have to know how to package your material.
Right. Right.
Because back in the day with print, we always said Christmas in July with
Right.
print.
Right.
And now it's not like that. So you
Right.
don't have that luxury of
Going.
time to
Yep.
have
Yep.
something typeset and then
Yep.
it's going to the printer.
Yep.
It's like boom, boom, boom. You have something that's going to go up. So the tighter a writer, a journalist,
Yes.
anybody can
Yeah.
get their work, the less work they're making for the editor.
Yeah.
It does put the onus, as you know, much more today on
Yeah.
the writer, on
Yeah.
the person who's presenting the materials, but that's just the way of the world. It's a
Right.
much faster paced world
Yep.
than it was when your mom started,
Yep.
when I started in the business, and just moving along with it and all the stuff, the podcast, which is really Radio 2.0, and Substack, and whatever new is coming out,
Right.
voice notes, I don't know, something new
Yeah.
is coming. And of course, AI, which
Right.
I want to
Right.
talk to you about. And I'm a big believer that people have to learn how to manage it, because the other day, somebody was telling me, another agent was telling me that one of the publishers had hired a person to manage AI. And I see that as the future. I really
Mhm.
do see that happening. What are your thoughts on all of it? And does
Geez.
it resonate what I just said to you?
Yeah, yes, it definitely resonates. I mean, as an agent, people are pitching me for representation. So they're looking to sign with an agent and have, my job is work on behalf of authors, helping them secure publishing deals. So I feel similarly when people ask me, how can I stand out in a query, or how do you know when you're really excited to sign somebody or offer representation? And very similarly, it's somebody, the proposal is really strong. It's tight writing. Everything else has just faded into the background. I'm completely immersed in what's being pitched to me. And anything that stands out that's going to save us time and create a more easeful process, because making a book is a really long and hard process, stands out. And so the attention economy is so real. And the more you can differentiate yourself and have the data, the numbers, the platform to back it up, the more appealing you're going to be as an author. So everything you say absolutely resonates.
So let's break this down. So first of all, what are you looking for in a proposal that's going to get your attention? And
Yeah,
then I want to talk about platform as a
sure.
separate element.
Yeah, and I should also clarify that I work exclusively in nonfiction. So I don't, some of these general guideposts might be helpful for fiction, but we're talking really about nonfiction. So in a proposal, I look for a really strong voice, a compelling platform, and a really clear understanding of the marketplace, who this book is for, and where that audience is, and also an explanation of how you are already reaching that audience. So it's often not just who the book is for and where they're at and how to reach them, but it's that the platform part is like you're already reaching them in some way. And maybe that's through classes, maybe it's through a newsletter, maybe it's through social. Hopefully it's kind of all of those things. So that's really what I look for. And if you want to get really into the weeds in it, pinned on my Substack is our proposal guidelines. I've written them in a way that is trying to guide a really comprehensive proposal for anyone looking to pitch an agent in nonfiction. It's not unique to pitching me. I tried to make them as comprehensive and resourceful as possible. So there's proposal guidelines, what goes into every section. I love the competition section, the comp section, which really is writers' ability to show their understanding of the marketplace, what's been successful in the past, and how they're adding to that conversation and building off of that success. It reinforces their point of differentiation. I'm looking for, on the food side, recipes that really get me excited and food that I am inspired to make. I have the luxury of working on projects that I want to work on, not need to. And so there might be a great proposal with great recipes, but it's just not the food I love. And that means you're probably going to be served best by another agent because they're going to just be more enthusiastic than I would be. And so I'm really looking for that whole package. And many of my clients, come to me as a first time aspiring author and then go on to work on second, third, fourth, eighth book. So it's also about finding people over proposals. The proposal is the document that's going to be pitched and get you through the door, but the relationship and the trust and the transparency and communication and working relationship is really what I'm looking for as well.
Yeah. So one of my superpowers is I can pull out sound bites. So people over proposals is a great one.
Yeah, definitely.
That's so important. So you see what the possibilities are in
Yes,
somebody based on what they're showing you of their writing, of
exactly.
where something can go.
Yeah.
How important is it in a proposal to have a thread running through it, right? Rather than I've
Sure.
collected recipes from a wide variety of chefs throughout the
Yeah.
United States, would it be more exciting to say, I think there's a trend towards nostalgia in the United States?
Yes.
I have now asked chefs all over the United States for their most nostalgic connected recipes, plus a personal experience connected to it, that
Yeah.
or somebody that they know, their father, the mother, whatever,
Yeah.
something with history, and now I have a theme.
Yeah, I think the more you can have a thread or unifying voice or thesis of some kind, the stronger the argument for it being a book versus some other medium or piece of content. It
Yeah.
really needs to have that unifier that brings the reader throughout. But in a cookbook, you also want to be able to dip in and out. There are many people in my side of the industry that do read a cookbook from the beginning to the end, but also there's a lot of people who are just going to go in, open it up to one page, and that recipe, that head note, that picture really needs to grab them. And so I think there's a primary and a secondary value in a cookbook in that you can dip in and out of it, but if you read it like a story, you're also going to get a sense of the author's lived experience, maybe their cultural background, maybe a technique. It's going to teach you something, it's going to transport you. So there's something that unifies that more transcendent experience of reading a cookbook as well.
Yeah, and this is such a rich discussion because when it comes to cookbooks, the pictures are important, and
Yes.
pictures, photos in a book cost money.
Well, what's interesting is when I joined the industry 17 years ago, publishers were primarily paying and commissioning the photographer and commissioning the art program themselves. Now, 17 years later, 95% of the deals I do, the author is responsible for delivering the art, which is coming out of their advance, and they're oftentimes not the one actually producing the photo shoot. So it's an enormous cost that now oftentimes falls to the author. And there's a million different nuances to negotiate specifics of that, but it's a huge change in the industry in just like the past decade or so.
If they haven't had a lot of experience, but they have a really good idea and can show you that they will be able to execute on it, and they have some other venue where people know who they are you willing to sometimes take a chance on a person like
Yes,
that?
I'm an agent that signs people without quote unquote huge platforms, but I do think we A, know it's going to be more of an uphill battle to sell, and B, whatever the pitch is really should be concept driven rather than platform driven in that case. So you can sign somebody with a smaller platform when the concept is driving the pitch, or you can pitch something that's really platform driven and back into whatever the concept might need to be because that person is coming to the table with a really established audience.
Interesting. And what's the change that you see happening in the industry almost as we're speaking? That's really something that not only writers, potential authors, but agents need to take into account.
Change is really the only constant, right? That's what they say. So the sayings go, publishers are risk adverse. It's hard to take on something that feels a little bit risky. And yes, certainly that is true. But I find that also in this particular moment in 2026, we are seeing publishers, they've always kind of had ideas that they develop in house and then go out and look for authors to write. But right now, that process is being really data driven because publishers are they have more access and information to data. And so they have, like, depending on the size of the publisher, they might have like an insights team when they're assessing what's trending and how do we do some projections around whether or not this is trending in maybe this is trending on social and it's not really meant for a book, or maybe it's trending in a way that does have that trajectory saying, yeah, there are going to be some books on this. We want to time something to really hit the market at the right moment. And so I do feel like right now publishers they've always developed ideas in-house, but the way that that in-house development is coming together has really evolved over the past even like 3 years.
So they're not going out and getting someone to fit their
They are, but the catalyst for why they want to do that specific idea is a little bit more informed in some way. I mean, yeah, it's more of a dynamic thought process and strategy in my experience.
I see.
Yeah.
And what about AI? How do you see that influencing the
Yeah.
hot
It's a
button?
it's a thing in every way. At the agency, we are really clear with our clients and authors that it's an evolving industry, part of the industry, and there's a lot of question around where and how this shows up. It shows up in their agency contracts, it shows up in their publishing contracts. Just the other day, I had an editor explicitly say to a client, no part of any of your manuscript can be written with AI. And the client was like, of course, I would never, I would never, but I'm finding that editors are needing, what does it mean that they even need to say that right now? It's infiltrated everything. It's put a lot of freelancers out of work. It's changed the face of
Yes.
journalism and media, and it's complicated. I think that there are certainly ways in which it can be leveraged as a tool and a resource, but as a crutch and the center of our work, I'm
Yeah.
personally not for that.
I believe voice-driven work is voice-driven. You have your voice as a writer. So for writers who don't have a voice yet, that's a little harder for them.
Life is hard, work is hard, writing is hard. It's not meant to just be generated in 60 seconds by a machine. And
Yes,
also, the voice that these machines have been trained on were done, against the copyright of those works. And so that's
there's
unacceptable.
so many lawsuits. The big one was
Anthropic.
Anthropic.
Yeah.
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 What about audiobooks? I mean, do cookbooks work for audiobooks? I guess they
Um,
do.
they can. Very rarely do cookbooks publish as audiobooks simultaneously. I think in my experience, when they have come to fruition, it's a little bit after the initial publication because there's a different production process and schedule, but more of my non-culinary, I mean, all my non-culinary titles are audiobooks. And then there's been like two cookbooks that I've worked on where there's a tremendous amount of storytelling in addition to the recipes. I mean, I've worked on more than two books that have a lot of storytelling, but there's two in particular where the author and I felt really strongly that there could be a great audiobook component to this. And basically it never happened because it's sort of an uphill battle with cookbook publishers. But I do think that because audio listening is just in this huge growth moment and has been for quite some time, I wouldn't be surprised if we're able to release more culinary shorts for maybe just the front matter or an author's story as unique audio content to complement a cookbook. I absolutely see that coming down the pike.
So when somebody's looking for an agent, what is your recommendation? Like from the other side, if you were
Yeah.
advising, which you do through your
Which I do,
Substack.
yeah. I say do your research, do your homework, take your time, write not rushed. Those are real guiding principles for me. And the where and how to do that research, there are great resources on Substack and other newsletters. I have a post that is called Where to Begin, which addresses this, and it's giving you a list of resources within the industry where you can start to do some of that research. A great place to start is like go to your local bookstore, go to the shelf where you think your book would be shelved, ultimately, pull out the books from that shelf, go to the acknowledgement section, see who the agent is that is thanks, see who the publisher is, see who the editor is, and start going to those websites and poking around. How do they like to be queried? What do they need to see? How can you get prepared? And start to really do your research and learn your way around.
And another, I always tell people to get even a short 6-month subscription to Publishers
Yeah.
Marketplace.
I always say people should do their research first and then you can even buy a day subscription to dig in there where you can actually search for agents, you can search for keywords of deals, you can search for your category of deal, and then reverse engineer. How does that agent like to be queried? What are their submission guidelines? A lot of people use Query Tracker. But yeah, Publishers Marketplace is a great resource. Yeah, tons of our deals are not on there.
And so I was just looking at the latest one you had here was February 19th, and that was to Story Books,
Yes.
Storey,
Yep.
and Our Fermented Lives and the forthcoming Essential Food Preserving.
Yep.
And you had a deal just 3 days before that. That was with Clarkson Potter, a wonderful publisher, on coffee. So
Yeah.
I printed out just to see all the different publishers. DK, which
Yeah.
has beautiful books and a lot of illustrated and gift type books. And this one was Feeding Tiny Bellies about school lunches.
Yeah, and that's a follow-up to Lily's first book. Feeding Tiny Bellies was her first book, and now she's doing the school lunches book that's coming out this summer. And she has certainly saved me from many lunchbox.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a helpful,
Yeah.
especially when it's the early days and you're
Yeah.
taking care of that yourself. And you had The Truth About Natural Hair, a guide to tight and kids curl care. And
Yeah.
that was for
Agate. Yeah. I sell to the big five and I sell to a bunch of small indie presses, medium-sized publishers, university presses here and there. I mean, it's really a full spectrum. And that's because I'm looking for the best deal for my client, and that's equal parts a financial deal that they're excited to say yes to, and also a team, an editor and a publishing house that is really excited and understands the full scope and possibilities of the project.
So let's say something, the dream is that an idea, a proposal would go to auction, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you advise people when it goes to auction? What should they be going for, just the biggest financial deal, or is the more important thing talking to the publisher? Like what do you say?
Yeah. So when I hold auctions, I set an auction date or auction rules that come after we've already talked to all of the publishers that would be participating. Very rarely do I have a house participating that the author hasn't had a chance to meet and talk with. So we
Can
go
you
into
just give a little nutshell about what an auction is
Sure,
for
yeah, an
those who don't
auction
know?
is when you're holding it's an auction for the book. So you're giving editors or interested publishers a window of time, a dedicated window of time when you're accepting offers on the book that you're selling. And there's a bunch of different ways to have auctions. There's best bids, there's rounds, and you usually hold an auction when you have more than a handful of publishers really interested in a book and some real momentum. And so sometimes I'll send a project out on submission knowing I'll go to auction, and other times I'll send a project out on submission and the response is overwhelmingly positive in a very fast and short period of time that I will then quickly decide, okay, we're going to have an auction. I'm going to give people a chance to read this. Then I'm going to set up calls with all the interested parties. And then I'm going to set auction rules, which outline the dates in which bids can come in and be revised and all of that. So going into an auction, my author and I will know this is who we really connected with, and this is who we hope going to be coming out on top. But I had a project last year. I mean, it takes usually about 2 years for a traditionally published book to come out. And so there was a proposal that went to auction, and I think we had either 6 or 8 houses bidding, and the author ultimately decided not to go with the highest bid because she really connected with the publisher that she ultimately chose. So I personally hold auctions in a way that I can reserve the author's ability to choose based on the total package, and that includes editorial fit.
Yes. Is it important for the author to say, I want a seasoned editor to work with me I want the most seasoned editor with the team to work with me on this? Or rather than
Yeah.
just leave it up to whatever.
Usually we'll know going in after the calls who would be the acquiring editor and if that's going to be the person that's also going to be working on the book, or if it's part of maybe their team, or it's going to be a collaboration of some kind. So those are all things that we would sort out in those early conversations, or depending on the pace in which the enthusiasm is there in the market for the proposal, those are questions I'd be asking in real time.
Fascinating. Is there something you're looking for now that if something just came across your desk, you'd be like, yes, I've been waiting for this.
People always ask me that, and honestly, no. I know that's an unexciting answer for everyone that wants me to say something specific that they happen to be an expert in, but it's what everyone says. You know it when you see it or when you read it, or for me, when I cook it or I taste it. But then also, I have a really robust and full client list. And so if there's something, again, that just catches my eye, I become fully immersed. I'm not distracted by any of my competing priorities or dumpster fires to put out for clients or something. Then I know I got something really special. To build off of that, I was reading a client's proposal the other day, and it was maybe their third round of, we're working towards getting the proposal ready to go out on submission, and it's very far along. It's really strong. And every time I read that proposal, I'm just as excited as that first time. And I just love that feeling so much. But there are moments where enthusiasm or the monotony of just like working on the revision, it becomes a
Yeah,
little like, let's get going here.
I think enthusiasm is so important.
Yeah.
It really is. I don't know if you know this, Ernie Anastos recently passed away, and I had the opportunity to be on his program in 2019 when he was on Fox. And I sat down there, and I'd done TV before, and I was the expert on a show. And he looked at me and he said, Estelle, just relax. You're in my hands. We're going to have fun.
That's so nice.
And we did.
I
He was
love
just such a wonderful, nice, positive person. So I think enthusiasm really does go a long way with authors, with editors, with everybody that you're working with. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
I was once pitching a project to a publisher and I was so excited about it. The way I was leaning forward, I almost fell off my chair. And he said to me in the moment, "You're really into this, huh?" And I was like, yes, I am. I mean, for me on the culinary side, we get real narrow in our topics and what I'm pitching. And so I can really nerd out on some really specific food stuff. And so it was just, I think he was complimenting me, but also definitely flagging that he got it. I was all in on representing this project.
Yeah, that's part of selling somebody an
Totally.
idea.
Yeah,
If you're excited about it, then they're probably going to be excited about it.
exactly. Exactly.
So my final question then, this is a fun one, is what's your favorite thing to cook? Because clearly you like cooking.
Oh, okay. I have a couple things. So my daughter is currently 6.5. So the cliche of not really having time while like working full time and then picking her up and then figuring out how to feed us is I'm just a walking cliche. However, my repertoire of recipes, though small, are things that I can cook with my eyes closed. So that is super helpful. And I love cooking my grandma's brisket, which is a family recipe that's been passed down and something that I have, put my own spin on over the years. And that's a win across the board for the family. So that's a beloved recipe. Personally, I love heat. So I like to cook a lot of things that are sort of spicy. So that's usually like an addition later on. I can spatchcock a chicken with my eyes closed, love crispy chicken. And then I am a big fan of tacos. I try to make them at home. I eat them whenever I travel. And in the before times when I had more time, I used to make my own tortillas. And that's something that I miss doing. And so maybe I'll get back to that at some point. But I love making homemade tortillas.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. It's been wonderful getting to know more about you, about your company, about what you do, and how you can help writers and what you're doing to help support, even with your Substack and everything else. So
Thanks, Estelle.
thank you so much for this conversation, Sally.
Thank you.
Follow me at EstelleSErasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.